feeling pretty good so far, but cautious as he was feeling pretty good last night.
I think he's feeling pretty good. I mean, look, when we're seeing him at 211 electoral votes right now, when we're seeing him ahead in Georgia, in North Carolina, in the key state of Pennsylvania, these are all things that Kamala Harris would need in order to be able to try and secure this, and President Trump is up big. And so I'm very happy about what I'm seeing tonight, and I truly think that the 45th president is going to be the 47th president of the United States.
So how do you look at the response that we could be seeing from the extreme left of violence and burning of cities, et cetera, et cetera? I hope that doesn't happen. But if that does, whoever is the president right now, I'm not sure it's Joe Biden, what is the reaction that you would expect from the Democrats?
Well, I mean, nothing. This is the same party who's been all about helping increase criminality. I mean, you're talking about Harris, who actually created the Minnesota Bail Fund back when Minnesota was on fire during the 2020 riots. But people also fail to remember that in 2016, when President Trump won, there was tremendous amount of violence, vandalism, and looting and things that were going on in downtown D.C., fires that were storming. And people fail to forget about these types of things that had already occurred because it's not convenient for their narrative where they want to paint every single conservative as this insurrectionist, when the reality is that the criminality that was going on in Baltimore, in New York, in Seattle with CHOP, in Minnesota, this was all being done by leftist Democrats and blue city-run states.
So we have, what did I say earlier, 78 days that we have to get through before he stands up and takes the oath. I'm concerned about his security. I have to tell you, these people have been working for this global, system through either the United Nations or the WEF for decades now. They are so close to capturing their dream all throughout the West, and I'm very concerned about his security and general stability in the world in these next 72 days.
I share that exact same thing, and trust me, I'm the one that helped to co-sponsor and co-sign on things like the elimination of funding for programs like the WHO and WEF. We know that the globalists hate the nationalist America First movement. We know that it doesn't work towards their singular, zero border, one currency, one army system that is going to be headed up by people like China. And so it's very, very obvious that we need to go ahead and ensure the safety and security of President Trump to guarantee that he can come in and do the job to save our republic, to help us to become strong in the world stage again, to secure our borders and protect our sovereignty, and also guarantee a future for our children, grandchildren, and the unborn.
You're a guy who is in special forces. You follow international affairs. Hang on just a sec. We're going to get a new count. We're calling another state. Stu?
Yeah, we have 3 calls to states to call real quick. Idaho, 4 electoral votes go to Donald Trump. Washington with 12 electoral votes to Kamala Harris. And California, 54 electoral votes go to Kamala Harris. So far, called count, Donald Trump, 215 electoral votes. Kamala Harris, 179.
If somebody can look up the California number, I'd like to see the number of votes and if it's way out of whack from previous years. All right, Corey, we were just talking about foreign affairs. Are you concerned at all about this transition period? If Donald Trump wins, does that immediately make things more stable because they're afraid of the consequence now from this president? Or does somebody try to make a move on us in this time of weakness?
I'll be honest with you. I think that President Trump winning actually brings more stability. China knows that President Trump will take action, as does our adversaries. Iran found out very quickly with the elimination of Qasem Soleimani. ISIS found out very quickly with the elimination of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He knows that he'll step up and do things. He knows that he'll do trade deals, tariffs. He'll do whatever it takes to hold our adversaries accountable and help our allies. And so I think that just him winning this election tonight will help to have some stability in the world as a whole.
Does this help us as well? Do you think, I mean, there's 150,000 illegals ready to cross our border. I mean, we've got pictures and videos of it. I mean, Mexico suddenly found a way to stop this until tonight. Does that go through, do you think, or does Mexico reconsider what they're even doing?
Well, I think that President Trump would be very quick to call the Mexico president and tell him and remind him of the Remain in Mexico agreement that was in place. And I think that understanding where the amount of trade and economic growth that comes into Mexico from the United States, they're not going to want to jeopardize that. And so I think that, again, President Trump coming into office will not only help with the stability here in the United States, but I think abroad as well. And so, again, all of our adversaries and all those who've been taking advantage, because weakness does invite aggression. That's what they detected whenever they had a Biden-Harris administration. And so knowing all this and having President Trump in, the juxtaposition between who will actually do their job and who won't is very obvious.
Thank you very much, Corey. Appreciate it. God bless you. Congratulations again on your win.
Let's have a great night.
Let's.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
California numbers that you're asking for, how many votes have been counted? The answer is 0. They called it for Kamala Harris without counting anything.
Without counting anything, okay.
Yeah,
Let me go to stage 2. We have some updates there.
Hey,
Sarah.
Glenn. Hey, Glenn. So a couple interesting notes here. The Election Day vote in a Dearborn, Michigan precinct has, surprisingly, check this out, 332 Trump votes, 293 Jill Stein votes, and 81 Kamala Harris votes. So apparently this sector coalesced and decided that they were going to throw their protest vote towards Jill Stein rather than voting for Kamala Harris.
Give me those numbers again.
Yes, so it's a Dearborn precinct.
Yeah.
332 Trump, followed by 293 Jill Stein, and at the end of that, 81 for Kamala Harris.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then you have, of course, the New York Times, which I can imagine how much they were crying when they continue to keep having to update this. But they now have Donald Trump at an 89% chance of winning and 301 electoral votes. So, again, it's the New York Times, as Matt said earlier. Take it for what it's worth. But you have to imagine that it pains them to put that up there. And not only that, we were just discussing this on our panel. We don't remember a time in 2020 that they were so quick to update that Donald Trump had that type of a chance. We were going back and forth about it. Aaron, am I misremembering this? Because I have a little bit of a PTSD from 2020, but I don't remember the New York Times coming out and saying, yep, Donald Trump's going to win.
Yeah, we're all very hesitant. In this moment, everyone remembers going to bed thinking Donald Trump had the momentum. He had the win. We're all holding back. Nobody wants to say,
dude, I'm nonstop coffee because I'm like, I can't go to sleep. I remember what happened last time I went to sleep.
Yeah, but I really do not remember the libs being this scared. I'm starting to bookmark my favorite meltdowns. I don't want to catch all, to count all my chickens, but I think we're going to get some gold here. We're already seeing a lot of depression, a lot of despair, politicos and others kind of spinning out. And so, it's not time to mine the salt yet, but we're getting there.
Sure. Delano, Ed Krasenstein. Of course, those of you who are big X users, you will know Ed Krasenstein as just one of the worst, okay? And even he, as a giant lefty, said it's becoming more evident that Trump will win. America spoke. I may not like the outcome, but that's what America is about. Democracy is what is the most important thing here. We don't have that. Let's hope we can unify as a nation, he says.
Well, at least he's not melting down like I've been hearing that Joy Reid is, saying Florida's a right-wing fascist state. And I mean, the number of times that we will see fascism, white supremacy, homophobia, don't care about women's rights over the next couple of days is going to be stunning. I would like to go back to something that Matt pointed out some time ago when he talked about Brad Wilcox and the marriage gap that we're seeing. And one of the things that I think, I hope over the next couple of years that we'll continue to do is see how the issues that happen in the home impact other areas of society. We know what happens in the home impacts the schoolhouse and the courthouse and sometimes the jailhouse, but also in the voting booth, because if you go by the major demographic groups, the highest to lowest marriage rates are Asian Americans, whites, Hispanics, and blacks. The Asian voting population is sometimes a little bit too small to count, but for white, Hispanic, and black, that is the exact percentage in terms of the order of support of Republican presidential candidates, and that's pretty consistent. So when you see that black vote starting to tick up a little bit, one, it's more significant than I think we realize, because you're talking about a lot of people who live in cities where there are no Republicans to vote for. Yeah. So that muscle is never conditioned. I grew up in New York City. I mean, other than Rudy Giuliani, you didn't have many, times to vote GOP. If what we're seeing is that black percentage is due to the married black voters, then I think that's something that I would see as a very significant change in the populace. And then those black folks should be ready to be called, the black faces of white supremacy.
Of course, always, of course. I want to, if I could, just gloat for a little bit. We sit here today in Texas, the state of Texas, and I do a lot of work at the polls, and I hear a lot of trash talking at the polls. So now that, they have called Texas, we can soundly say, no, Kamala Harris isn't going to take down Texas. But I did spend some time at the polls today in Oaklawn, which, for those of you who are not familiar, Oaklawn, I'll just put it this way. They have rainbow flags on their streets. Okay, so make of that what you will. And I just wanted to point out from my mom, hey, Mom, I made the Dallas Morning News. They took some pictures of me. We went with some homemade signs, 10 out of 10, drug cartels endorse Kamala Harris. And we did another one, Venezuelan gangs heart Kamala Harris as well. And turns out we made CBS News. Take a look.
There is more on your ballot than the presidential and Senate races, a lot more, including 18 amendments if you're voting in Dallas County. And it can be overwhelming if you're reading them for the first time today. Our Lacey Beasley breaks down 3 big amendments that you need to know about. They're called the Hero Amendments. Tell us about them, Lacey.
Hey, Karen. Yeah, we're standing right outside a very popular polling location in Dallas. This is Oaklawn Library. You can see there is a line that's already wrapped around the building right now. We've been out here for about an hour. Earlier, when I checked in about an hour ago, they said they've already seen close to 400 voters here. Now, I caught up with voters who are both for and against the Hero Amendments. And here's what you need to know. The Hero Amendments would have a major impact on and you on the local ordinances. Proposition T would mandate.
I mean, I did what I could to embarrass the fake news media. So, James, if in fact, again, I don't want to get too excited, but if in fact Donald Trump does take this, I mean, can we just put fake news media in the coffin, bury them 6 feet under?
You mentioned that that Dearborn precinct.
Yeah.
And, I'm pretty sure this is the South Dearborn precinct that was won by Joe Biden by, I think, 88%. And just the spectacular collapse of the Harris campaign. This isn't just about Kamala Harris. It's about something larger. Donald Trump is a guy who's now performing historically well with Muslims, as well as Jews, as well as Latino men. The list is now going on and on and on and on. And whether he ends up winning tonight or at the end of next week or somehow doesn't win at all, this is already a crushing defeat for intersectionality, for that pride flag of a zillion colors. What we are discovering is that whatever becomes of Donald Trump, that whole pitch, which is basically rule by flattery, has failed. You're seeing it across different demographics, across all these subcultures and identity groups. Identity politics is broken. The back of identity politics has been broken in America, and we have Donald Trump to thank for that.
Yeah. Do you agree, Delano?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think the left overplayed its hand. Now different coalitions are going to react to different parts of the anti-identity politics shift. For some, it'll be race. For some, it'll be obviously the gender ideology. Sure. So how you manage that coalition is going to be interesting. But when you see somebody, and I don't think we pause to think about this enough. This is the GOP. Again, we're not that far removed from the George Bush years, right, in the Iraq War. And to think that the GOP could make this type of inroads among Muslim Americans is pretty fascinating to see, while becoming an anti-war party.
Right.
Is pretty fascinating to see. So the tectonic plates are shifting. Again, what this looks like as a governing coalition, I think remains to be seen.
Warren, what does that transfer of power even look like?
I would like to say something really quick about the death of identity politics.
Please.
I hear what everybody's saying, and I agree that the current coalition, the current way that the left has shaped its party, looks like it could be under serious stress. However, identity politics isn't going anywhere. All politics is at some level identity politics. And the question is, what identity is salient? Is it your race? Is it your religion? Is it your ethnos from another land? These are the things that matter to people. These are the things that deeply define them. And when you rearrange these coalitions, you can find new ways to understand the American experience and find new ways to share values across these things. But let's not forget, let's not pretend that these divisions necessarily just disintegrate and that these weapons disappear in the hands of Democrats. Yes, they may have lost their current formulation, and that gives us great opportunities to make inroads and reforge these alliances. But that doesn't mean that the Democrats will not continue to push this.
And I would just add to that, mention Republicans, we have to make sure Republicans don't help Democrats continue the next generation of racial pandering.
Like we have another
hey guys,
race call.
I want to interrupt, but we're going to come back to this. I find your conversation fascinating, and I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. But first, let's go to Stu. We've got apparently a big update.
Biggest call of the night so far, the first of our 7 swing states that we're going to decide the election. North Carolina goes to Donald Trump, 16 electoral votes, which brings him up to, 231, I believe is the count we're at right now. We're getting closer and closer to 270, Glenn.
Is North Carolina really considered a swing state, really?
It was really tight. 2020 was.
Oh, I know. Oh, and 2020 was too.
It was very, very close. The polling showed it was very, very close here. Barack Obama did pretty well in North Carolina as well back in the day. So it has been pretty much a swing state, but one that obviously Donald Trump needed to have, and he's hitting all the marks that he needs to hit to get to 270 electoral votes, and honestly, at this point, trending for considerably higher than that.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. Let me go back to the panel on stage 2. You guys are talking about a couple of things, and I'd just like to get your reaction to 2 different things. First of all, the New York Times, you were talking about, and we're like this in here too. You want to believe them, but you don't want to believe them because what the hell are they doing? What's the game they're playing here? However, I wonder, I'd love to hear your opinions on, are they just doing what Bezos is doing? Are they seeing the writing on the wall? I mean, I don't think that there is any self-reflection at the New York Times or in the left media. They will always blame it on something. But is this a moment of crap, we're in trouble, let's lead the way and start calling things for Donald Trump just to try to, I don't know, appease either the people who have abandoned them or just Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think that there is an element of desperation there, right? That they want to just cling to any sort of credibility that they think that they may have left. They're seeing the writing on the wall. They're seeing, as you mentioned, not just Jeff Bezos, but you have, the LA Times, you have USA Today, you have all of these unprecedented non-endorsements where they would typically endorse a Democrat. So I think it's definitely, an element of we don't want to be the last ones. We don't want to be wrong. And by the way, as we're talking, the New York Times just upped the Trump chance of winning to 91%. So we are now in the 90s.
Okay. So let me ask Oren, because you were just talking a few minutes ago, and a couple of things came to mind. I think we're looking at a replay of 1920, where Woodrow Wilson had scared everybody to death. They saw what this was turning into, and the Americans were like, okay. And that's why progressivism became liberalism, because the Americans saw it. And then FDR came in 10 years later. Coolidge with Harding came in, cut taxes. I mean, it created the Roaring 20s. But then they just switched masks again and came in, and it was a huge boom for progressivism. So I hope that the Republicans or this new coalition is aware that there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that this is the beginning of the death of that ideology, no matter what you call it.
No, that's exactly right. A lot of people have celebrated the end of DEI departments across corporate America in different areas. But as you well know, in many cases, this is simply a rebranding of the same ideology. And while I'm very glad to see a lot of former Democrats, including guys like Donald Trump and RFK and Elon Musk coming on board, they come with certain priors. And it's going to be the responsibility of the conservative movement to actually hold these people to account and say, we appreciate you coming along. We appreciate you championing these things. But ultimately, we need to have those values moving forward if we're going to change anything.
Thank you so much. All right, let me go to Stu. Another call. Make it a good one.
Well, yeah, actually an update on the Senate here, Glenn. I thought we'd look at this. And the Senate looks actually really, really good. Let me give you where we're locked into right now. Right now we have 48 seats for the Republicans locked and called. We also have 39 for the Democrats. Now, basically, the Republicans are out of easy ones at this point. They have 0 almost certain remaining. There's a couple for the Democrats that they will still pick up most likely. But you see we're at a 48-41 Senate, and this is 11 total remaining. But you look at what is remaining just hasn't been called. I refuse to call the Cruz race until the New York Times has to suffer through doing it. So far, they still have not done it. It's been, but it is true that most CNN has called it. I think Decision Desk has called that race. That one looks good. Ohio also looks good. That would get you to 50. The Nebraska race is still uncomfortably close with Deb Fischer. Montana, we don't really have a lot of the vote in Montana yet, although Sheehy is favored there. And then you start looking at other.
What was the spread? Hang on, with the president in Montana, do you know?
The president, well, I mean, the Montana, we're just really early. We haven't called it yet. Of the vote there. Right now, Sheehy is up by 18 points.
Did you just say Sheehy?
Yeah, Tim Sheehy.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I thought we were talking the president's pronouns for a second.
No, not that. No. But also, if you look at Montana, he's up by 25. Trump's up by 25. Or 29. So, Tester is going to outperform, the Kamala Harris in Montana. There was never any doubt about that. That split is important, though. But look, the Senate looks pretty good. Probably still blowable, but it would be really hard to do it. And I think that's where we are with Trump now. I mean, it's theoretically possible he could lose all 3 of these blue wall states.
Right.
But man, he's the heavy favorite in at least 2 of them, I'd say. And he may win all 3. And I will say this, let me throw one more out there. Up for debate right now is Minnesota. I think you have to look at Minnesota as a state that Donald Trump might pick up. Now, I don't. Was very positive. I wouldn't say I'm guaranteed. I think that is into the toss-up category.
That would be. I mean, that is just pudding with my ice cream. That is just fantastic.
But I thought Tim Walz was popular there.
Yeah.
No, this is what I want more than anything. Honestly, what I really wanted is Donald Trump to win only because he won Minnesota. I wanted him to just be over 270 just so we could blame Tim Walz for the loss. But him losing his home state just be delicious. That's just something I want out of this.
That's crazy.
It's in the picture, and I wouldn't say it's anything. It's a toss-up, I would say, at this point. Glenn, one more update here real quick, if we could. We have, this is where we stand right now, 231 electoral votes for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris is at 179. As far as certain goes from here, there's nothing left easy for Donald Trump. We've wiped through all those states. He's got 0. Kamala Harris has only 12 remaining. So we're getting very, very close to the end here. The likely minimum, 231 for Donald Trump and 191 for Kamala Harris. 116 to go here. But again, a lot of these states looking pretty positive for Donald Trump. And even though a couple of those fringy states, those states that were reach swing states, like Minnesota, looking interesting. It doesn't look like he's going to get there in Virginia. Doesn't look like he's going to get there in New Hampshire or Maine, even though those states might be a little bit closer than people expected. But Minnesota is at least in the picture at this point.
You don't think New Hampshire is?
I don't think he's going to get there in New Hampshire.
It's going to be razor close there, probably not.
Yeah.
He's up 3.5 in Pennsylvania with 75% reported. Start warming up Hail to the Chief, guys.
That is fantastic.
So this is going to be over tonight.
That is fantastic. Do you think that, hang on, do you think that Harris will concede? because I don't think that's
If I were Trump, I wouldn't wait for her.
No, I wouldn't either.
I don't know if you remember, because much of that night was a blur, but when we got to the point in 2020 when it was pretty clear that something weird was going on, and that's before we even saw the 4 a.m. ballot drop-offs.
Yeah.
And I kept saying here on the air in this room, he needs to come out and declare victory.
Yeah.
And then we thought, you and I decided, let's stay on until he speaks. He did. He didn't come out and declare victory, and he should have done that. When they say things like, well, Trump's going to declare victory before all the votes are counted, folks, every presidential election we've ever had has always had someone declare victory before the votes are counted, because it actually takes them a week to count all the votes in every congressional district. So that's a gaslighting.
Yeah.
That's not a real thing.
Yeah.
He should have absolutely, when he came out and spoke, 2, 3 a.m. Eastern, whenever it was 4 years ago, he should have absolutely declared victory.
Yeah, he needs to do that tonight. But I don't think, remember what Hillary Clinton said in 2020, no matter what happens, Joe Biden should not concede, because then that just shuts all the doors of legal stuff, which I don't think they're going to give up. We have to talk about that probably more tomorrow. But let me go to Daniel. Daniel Horowitz, you have some perspective on Deb Fischer?
Yep. So there's a couple of interesting things here. There's 60% in at this point, but Omaha, the liberal part, so there's basically Omaha and then the rest of the state. Omaha came in first. So, for example, Trump's only up 10, but he won it by 19 last time, which this time he appears to be doing better. So what that means is Deb Fischer has actually finally flipped it, and what I would assume is she will remain that way the rest of the night, and she'll only grow. Now, I think it's worth mentioning that Osborne ran ads saying she didn't stand with Trump, and he ran to the right of her. So that's criminal that we have these red states and you have liberal Republicans that open up this opportunity for them to run to the right. But I think people understood that this Osborne guy would help the Democrats. Now, one interesting thing on the ballot initiatives for abortion, this is the one state where we have dueling amendments. So there's 434, which would limit abortion after the first trimester. It's winning with 51%. But then you have the one creating a right to abortion, 439, that's winning with 53.2. If the trajectory holds, I believe we will come out banning it after the first trimester and not creating a right. But just so the listeners know, pursuant to Nebraska law, if they both win, which is possible, the one with the most votes is the controlling law where they conflict.
Jeez, that's a mess. That's just a mess. All right, Steve Dace.
And this one's kind of personal. So back home in Iowa, one of my best friends, he's probably watching right now, Mike Pike, ran for state senate. And he was told an hour ago that he lost by 147 votes. Starts getting ready to concede, everything else. Okay, just a small business owner, put up his heart and soul into beating a Democratic incumbent in a new district. We got a call 30 minutes ago. Our bad. It's like a Monopoly card. You pick up the chance card. Tabulation error in your favor. You actually won by 47 votes.
Wow.
How crazy is that? And apparently we can't count votes in Iowa either.
What is, because you guys were offset here for a little while when we were talking about the New York Times. What do you think the New York Times is doing? Is this a Bezos thing? Is this, you see the writing on the wall, let's not be the holdout here? What do you think's happening?
I think they're crying.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's savor that for just a moment.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
If you turn on MSNBC right now, they're freaking out. They are freaking out. It's a beautiful thing to watch because I am not going to celebrate a Trump victory until the swing states have been called.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm not going to pop a champagne bottle. I'm still there's still a kernel of skepticism in me. Call the swing states before I can feel any relief.
Totally agree with you.
But
call it to the point where he's got 270. Then I feel
that's exactly right. And by the way, we're getting pretty close in Pennsylvania. Maybe I'll do Trump's the weave for a second because there's a couple of data points that I wanted to share. Philadelphia has 75% of their votes reporting right now.
That means that there is 172,000 votes remaining to be counted still in the Philadelphia area. Even if Kamala Harris won 100% of these votes, that would mean that she would lead Trump by less than 8,000 votes across the whole state. But the whole state still has red-leaning counties such as Cambria County and Carbon County and Luzerne County.
Wow.
So I think, and I'm not making any call here, not only is that Stu's wheelhouse, but this looks very good for Trump in Pennsylvania. If he wins Pennsylvania, I will start to feel a little more hopeful. It's not that I'm pessimistic here. I'm just skeptical.
Yeah, I'm waiting for. We've been here.
But the point that I was going to make too is that if Donald Trump does win, this will be a victory not just over wokeness, not just over forever wars, not just over Kamala Harris. This is a victory over these very media outlets like MSNBC, like the New York Times, who not only lied about him unfairly, not only were biased and pretended to be objective, but were so vitriolic, so hateful, so malicious and sinister in their accusations and their lies that it begot assassination attempts against him.
Yeah, and they still will be. I don't think MSNBC, you're not going to turn Joy Reid down. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
she's not going to go, you know what, I'm going to change my rhetoric. Stu, you got another call to make.
Another call to make. This one on the West Coast for Kamala Harris, Oregon.
Oh, what a surprise!
So close.
I know it was up in the air for a few moments there, but that brings her to 187. It is now 231, 187.
The trees are weeping. Thank you very much. So we were just talking about MSNBC and how do these. First of all, I don't believe there will be any self-reflection. I remember calling Chuck Todd. Remember, I was against Donald Trump in 2016, and I called Chuck Todd, and I said, Chuck, I know everybody is celebrating on at NBC. Please, let me explain why he won and who we on the other side really are, or you're going to make some of the grave mistakes that I made, and you'll make the situation much, much worse. I called all of the people that I, had in my Rolodex on who I could thought would talk to me and be reasonable. Not a single person wanted to talk about it. All they wanted to do is vent. There was no self-reflection at all. Here we are 8 years later. They won't do it again. They will not accept that what they did led really to his win.
I have a question for you. Something that I've noticed about Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo since they left CNN, they seem a lot more reasonable, a lot more open to listening to the other side. Is it really these individuals at these networks who are so ideologically driven and refuse to see what the other side is like? Or is it the networks and they're just doing their job?
And groupthink.
I have not, neither network ever told me what to say. Okay, they didn't get involved in that. CNN was vicious in the control room on prove that. Where'd you get that? I mean,
You're talking as you're talking?
As I'm talking.
They're saying that in your
ear. We had to tape. We were never live at CNN. They'd never let me go live except on Larry King Live when I filled in for him once. But it would take us 3 hours to tape a 1 hour show, or 41 minutes.
Wow.
Okay? Because they would stop us on everything. But if we could prove it, they would let it go. So they never told anything. If I hadn't known who I was, if I hadn't known who I served, and hadn't been an alcoholic in recovery, I don't think I would have survived that, because the elevator rides alone were the worst experience in my professional career ever. Elevator door would open, and they would be packed with people, and they'd all be talking and laughing and everything else. The door would open, they'd see me, not a word from anyone.
Most people can't tolerate that. They just can't bear that kind of tension.
Right.
Yeah, I heard Chris Cuomo actually say one of the most interesting ways to describe Donald Trump. He was doing a video on X, and he said, you know, a lot of people think that everyone's voting for this fascist. They think he's a bad guy. They're voting for him anyway. And he said, no, they're hiring a tough guy to do a dirty job, and that's it. Yeah. And I was like, this is an interesting side of Chris Cuomo that I haven't seen before. Yeah. Oh, no, I don't.
COVID.
You think so? Even with his brother?
Because he got COVID and he's still suffering effects from it today. He took ivermectin and he's better from it. And then he realized the mainstream media lied about ivermectin. Now, he'll tell his personal story. I don't know that he'll ever indict, verbally indict his brother because of family loyalty. Mm-hmm. But I think that if it weren't for his brother, I bet that he would red pill much further. I've been on his show debating him.
I hate to judge because people have said so many things about me. Oh, he's only saying that because he makes money or whatever. I think you guys know me well enough to know I don't really care. I say what I really believe. I don't know him, so I don't want to judge him on this. But the flip is so dramatic, where I don't think Don Lemon's flip is that dramatic. When you saw him on with Elon Musk, he was the same guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that I think it's mainly groupthink, and you're surrounded by the best people in the business.
Yeah.
You know the sponsors, what they want. If you are not, the biggest thing I learned at CNN is they're just vacant. When you talk to somebody, it's frightening.
Yeah.
When you're talking on the air with them, they're not. You see that there's nothing happening behind their eyes. It's like shock. Yeah, they don't
They're
listen.
thinking about something else as you're talking.
Well,
to
someone is probably talking in their ear and they're doing something else, and they're not actually intaking what you're saying. You can actually tell that, and a lot of us who've been on the side of being the ones conducting interviews, I think, notice it more when you see it in someone else, because you can very easily have your pre-prepared questions and ask them without listening and crafting your follow-up based on what the person said. You can just ask your questions, and that's what they often do there. They don't have any interest in understanding the other point of view.
There's no curiosity at all.
So let me throw this out there. There's part of me right now that is maybe I'm getting too high and mighty, but part of me right now feels as if I don't really want everyone to change. I don't want them to reflect, because if Texas is going to go by plus 14, why don't you spend another, $100 million? Continue lighting your money on fire and telling me how, oh my gosh, we're going to win. I mean, I'm kind of looking for that. And then
the only reason why I'm bringing up the press is because if they don't change, if they would just have some humility, we could pull people back together enough to hold the republic united. Stu.
Okay, we have a Senate race to call, and this was just painful for the New York Times. They dragged it out until every little inch of pain came out. But we can call Ted Cruz as a senator from Texas. Call it all red in his $9 trillion of ad spending. Unsuccessful in this race. Do we also have Ohio ready to go? I mean, I'll tell you about it anyway, even if we don't quite have the graphic ready. We do, I think. Bernie Moreno, this is a big win. In Moreno, that's Ohio. They're calling for Donald Trump, the state, but this will actually be the Senate race. Bernie Moreno defeating Sherrod Brown, which is a pickup for the Republicans. It gets them to 50 Senate seats. That's a big one. That was, I would say, one of the swing states that was quite close, and Bernie Moreno is going to the Senate.
I'm just writing a quick note to Ted Cruz.
Oh, nice.
I just wrote, you're the man, praise the Lord. Actually, another happy point, the New York Times, it killed them to declare that. Anyway, okay. So, Stu, what do we have that we're looking for to be able to call Pennsylvania? And how close will we be when they do call Pennsylvania, if it goes to Trump?
You've got about, let's see, I'm looking at the Pennsylvania race, bringing it up here. We are at, let's see, 81% of the vote in right now. Donald Trump is up by 3%, 51 to 48. Yeah, it's close still. I mean, about 200,000 votes.
But still, if what Liz says is true, that we are looking at the red parts of the state still to be counted, that's usually
I'd be stunned
call.
if Donald Trump did not win Pennsylvania. Like flabbergasted, I'll fall over.
Right.
Stunned.
Right. And how far would they be, Stu? How close would he be to 270?
I mean, he gets Pennsylvania. He's basically there. I mean, like we haven't called Georgia yet. Really, it's just a
what
matter
the
of
hell
time
is happening
on
with
that one.
Georgia?
I know.
Georgia is going to it's about 140,000 votes separating them. It's 51 to 50.
That was a while ago, though.
They're the only
So
ones.
we haven't called that yet. But he would need that. He would need Arizona, and that Pennsylvania would do it. I mean,
Trump leads Michigan by 5 with about 42% of the vote counted.
Yep, and Wisconsin is a 3-point lead with 71% of the vote in. He looks good to me in all three of those swings, all three of the blue wall states. They have voted the same way since, what was it, 1988?
1988.
Yeah. So it's been a really long time. They usually go the same way. He looks really, really good there. You never know what's going to happen with last-minute votes, and this is why we sit here and we make sure we look at all of them and stay up and watch all of them until they are actually called. But again, this looks good for Donald Trump in these states. Arizona, by the way, 53% of the vote in, still very close there, about 0.4% lead for Donald Trump.
In Arizona?
In Arizona, but with 53% of the vote in, I wouldn't panic about that. If you remember Pennsylvania, people, of course, will remember Pennsylvania for Donald Trump looking like he had a big lead, and then a lot of vote coming in late on the blue side. And people very upset about that.
So is this Maricopa County that has been?
Remember, the opposite is true with Arizona. Arizona usually looks the opposite, where it looks like Democrats get a lead and then Republicans come back. It's just the way they count the vote there. So probably pretty good that Donald Trump is actually tied here. I mean, this is at least a lean Republican. I think all these swing states that are remaining, with the exception of Nevada, which we don't have really any data on at all yet, everything else so far looks like it's leaning toward Trump. There aren't a ton of massive blowouts. Like Georgia is one right now we could call if we wanted to. It's basically there. The other three states you wouldn't necessarily call right now, but as Steve said, you'd be surprised in Pennsylvania. Though we were surprised last time in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I know.
So
I think what we're seeing here is, and I said this on Pat Gray's show this morning, that I did not think that we were going to sit here tonight, look at the 7 decisive states, and he was going to win 3, she was going to win 3, and we're going to be down here counting precincts in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Glenn. And it goes to when I was in my hotel room Sunday watching my Lions play the Packers on national TV.
By the way, congratulations.
Thank you. And I did my best. I played hard. I'll take the credit. But
who would have guessed the Lions? But go ahead.
But every commercial break, and I mean every one, as I said earlier, it was, Ted Cruz either helped my daughter or Ted Cruz won't let me kill my daughter.
Yeah.
And when you're running that kind of messaging, like I said at the top of the show, that tells you they're not going after the same voters. They are trying to drive out people that are totally different would respond to a different electorate would respond to one message over the other.
Sure.
And if you go back to what I said back at 5 o'clock, I thought what we would see tonight is the margins in the states would be close, but the trend line would not be. And that is exactly what we are seeing, okay? It is very clear that the message the Republicans ran on is, and the message, well, let me say the Republicans, they suck. The message Trump ran on and forced the Republicans to then own, okay, against their will, okay, that energy is what is carrying the night.
Yes.
And dominating the night, and you're watching the birth of a new coalition be formed. Going back to what you said, they're too invested. It's a demonic cult, it's a religion, but they're going to have to completely repackage their messaging. If not, you're looking at this being, as much as we can in a balkanized arena and with someone that still has a persona that can alienate people like Trump, you're looking at an 84 kind of a reassessment where it would take them several cycles, like 88, then 92, and probably even without Ross Perot, they probably still don't win that one. They would have to take a several cycle rebrand to dig out of the way what's happened to them.
We were just talking about it. And this is 1920.
Yep.
They scared the hell out of the Americans, but it took them 10 years, but they just rebranded.
If their response to this is you're all a bunch of racist, homophobic bigots, and that just confirms it for us. Like, they can think it, But like to just have that be their branding response is see, because here's the thing: whenever you create a new coalition, whenever Hispanic men or black men vote Republican, and they do it for the first time, the hardest part is to do it for the first time, brother.
Yeah.
It gets much easier the second time.
We talked about that with the red hats.
And so you end up with 45% in this election, and it's maybe 51 or 52. Look at Ted Cruz has a 29-point swing or something like that with Latinos here in the state of Texas in this Senate election I saw. All right? And so from his last race against Beto O'Rourke. Once you get the Republicans won a border county here in Texas for the first time since 1892, almost entirely Hispanic, I saw. So the minute you can get people to cross over that subculture picket line, metaphorically, the first time, it gets much easier to do it this time forward.
So I want to talk about something else. I want to go first to Hillary, and then I want to come back, and I want to talk to you about the other big thing that we haven't talked about yet that has been defeated. And it's enormous. It is the elephant that I don't even think people see in the room. We'll get to that in a second. Let me go to Hillary.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. You know, it's almost midnight on the East Coast, so I feel like it is only fair that we check in on the legacy media and see how it's going.
Let me just reiterate and underscore and repeat. There aren't bombs. There's no real threat. The threat that happens here is the calling in the bomb threat where there isn't a bomb in place, specifically to try to achieve chaos, to try to get these sites evacuated, and in some cases to disrupt voting patterns.
And for kids watching for the first time election results, they should know that we never had bomb threats before Donald Trump became a presidential candidate.
Gosh.
Well, and I feel like
my gosh.
The only kind thing to do in this situation, too, is to check in on the Harris campaign. We want to see how they're doing right now, too.
Let me just give you a gut check here about what we are hearing here as we've been sitting here reporting from the Harris headquarters. And I think the operative word right now is silence. There's not a lot being said because the Harris team appears to be searching for bright spots in the map as these results very, very slowly come in.
Searching for bright spots and also very aware of the warning signs throughout the electorate in Virginia, in Iowa, in other places.
They're going to have a tough time searching for those bright spots because we've just heard ABC News was reporting that people are already leaving the campaign headquarters and taking off. Does this surprise any of you?
No. I mean,
I finally agree, Glenn. It is a campaign of joy.
Yeah, it is.
Enjoying the hell out of this.
Yeah, it's great
Can I
joy.
get a witness on that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like Hillary Clinton. I mean, when parties turn into funerals, you kind of want to just get out of there. So let me thank you, Hillary. Let me address the one thing that I frankly am so happy, but also shocked that this is the best they could do. They had $1 billion that we know of.
Yeah.
Okay. We know that a lot of the stuff on the abortion amendments, that was foreign money. Okay, that wasn't going to Biden Harris. The amount of money that was in this, and this is it.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. The press, you can only play it for so long. The money only goes so far.
Celebrity? I don't think I know that Democrats always get celebrity supporters, but I don't think I've seen Beyonce come out in favor of a politician the way that she did in Texas for Kamala Harris. Paid $10 million to give that speech. And then we've got Taylor Swift.
Wait, what? I think. Did I just make that up?
No, I had read the same thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Paid her $10 million?
I don't know if it's true, but I read the same
I know. Gosh, I could be spreading propaganda right now.
No,
I'm pretty
I
sure
wasn't
that's
questioning.
true.
I was just shocked because I thought she was doing it because she was
out of
liberal.
the goodness of her heart. No, I'm pretty
Is that how
sure
celebrity
she
endorsements
was
typically
paid
work?
tens of millions of dollars or $10 million.
That
But
cannot
fact check
be.
that. You can
Yeah,
fact check
that
that in the
cannot
control room, please. Anyway, she still came out in favor of her. That obviously didn't do anything in the state of Texas. Taylor Swift, with all of her influence, came out in favor of them. Didn't work.
I talked about this morning. There is a difference. When you are talking about Joe Rogan, when you're talking about you, Allie, or any of us, when you're doing a podcast and it revolves around you, who you are, your opinions, people can sense when you're a fake and when you're not. You know, after a while, they know. They know who you are.
Especially when it's a long-form conversation.
Right. And what happens over the years, it's why I don't know how your folks that listen to you and watch you react to you, but I imagine it's much the same with me. They come up and they'll give me a hug. We've never met before. They'll give me a hug. They will always say, wow, you're much taller than I thought. But then they always follow that with, I feel like I know you. I feel like we're family.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen with celebrity.
It's so true.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when the best advertising is a friend telling you.
Yeah.
We and Joe Rogan and all of these other podcasters, the audience sees them as friends.
Yes.
And so that's what makes an impact.
Right.
I might like, Beyonce and say, I love her music and everything else, but I don't think she's my friend.
Well, it's the
She's
same
a celebrity.
thing with Joy Reid or any of these people in the mainstream media. I think a lot of those people, they believe if their shows are doing well or their networks are doing well, that everyone loves them. And sometimes that's true. That's true with you.
Correct.
That's true with Tucker. It's true with Megyn. It's not true with everyone.
No.
Sometimes they leave those networks and they realized, oh, people were just watching me because I was on. They didn't
Exactly
really
right.
love me. And
Exactly
they didn't really
right.
care what I had to say.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm super careful about this.
4,
Usually
5, 6,
there is
7.
not actually evidence that Beyonce was paid $10 million. I
Okay.
don't know if it was false, but I can't find a good citation for that. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry for spreading.
Wow,
This
just-
is why people love podcasting.
Hang on, hang on.
Because this is.
Hang on. Alex Stein is outside of the White. I don't know why you're outside of the White House, but okay. Alex.
Glenn, we are outside of the White House because everybody is already leaving the Kamala rally. So we got some intel from some Capitol police officers that there was going to be a bunch of protesters here. But we come here, there's not one freaking protester. So I don't know what they're trying to, why they're trying to trick us and tell us that there's going to be protesters here. So when we saw people leaving, we said, hey, let's go check out the White House. We want to try to go, mix it up, Glenn. But we kind of blew our cover, too. When I started yelling Glenn Beck, I think people realized that we weren't really white dudes for Harris.
Yeah. Not really a smart thing to do, especially when you're alone in a crowd in Washington, D.C. But, yeah.
And Glenn, this area is dangerous. I'm not, the Fox News will tell you that everybody's dying in San Francisco and getting shot in D.C. Well, Fox News lies, but they're not lying about how bad it is right here in D.C. That's probably the one thing Fox News has ever got right in their life is the fact that it is actually dangerous in D.C. because you just see all the cops. The cops are scared to stop the criminals. I'm not even kidding, Glenn. This may be a little too raunchy for this thing, but there's no bathrooms out there. I went to a police officer. I said, sir, is there a 7-Eleven or a restroom around? And he looked at me, Glenn. I've never seen a cop do that. He goes, just go in that alley. I've never seen a cop encourage somebody to, and I didn't go in the alley. I went to a Potbelly, but that's what these cops are doing. They're just telling people to urinate on the streets. And I'm not kidding, Glenn. That's how crazy Washington, D.C. is right now.
Well, they've been crapping on our country for a very long time, so what's the difference in an alley? Thank you, Alex. Thanks for braving this, man. I don't know how you got that job, but maybe because you're just somebody that everybody in management knows, oh, he'll do it. He'll do it. He's nuts.
Yes. Glenn, I would walk on glass for you. I would walk on glass for the Blaze. I wasn't kidding when I say that I take a bullet.
No.
You tell jump. You say jump. I say how high. That's what I do, Glenn.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Somebody should tell him I'm not in charge of anything around here. All right. So let me go. It's now 12 midnight on the East Coast in 10 seconds of North America. And we still don't know, but we are getting closer. It's 11 o'clock Central Time. I really thought it would be over by this time, meaning I thought they would just stop counting. And with an exception of Georgia, I'm surprised that we haven't had more hijinks. And maybe what Trump was asking for is true. That
There's no narrative.
It's too big to steal.
There's no narrative to justify anything. They don't have a narrative. What I do think is possible, and hat tip, I want to make sure I give our colleague Daniel Horowitz credit on this, because I was about to post the same thing and saw he did it first. With this realignment we're seeing now, where Republicans are doing better in these urban areas, they're still performing under par in suburbs in several places around the country too. I think it's
Democrats are.
Or no, Republicans.
Republicans.
I think it's possible. Typically it's hard to with after redistricting for a Republican to win the White House and to not have the House. I think it is possible that they won't have the House. I would say it's probably about 50-50 right now. That they lose a few suburban districts and won't get the House.
I like you. I start not to like this guy now.
Okay, what are you looking for? You're looking for a House projection?
I'm looking for a House projection that's not a little black rain cloud.
I mean, I kind of thought that they might lose the House. That kind of seemed like the most vulnerable part of this whole equation.
Yeah, it did.
Especially because there's a lot of seats when the Republicans took the House last time in places like New York that made you nervous. I can dive into it. I think there is somebody else in this building that's doing the House tonight, but I can try to look into it and get more information on it.
Do you know who that is? Who's watching the House?
No, they were telling me somebody else is watching the House.
Ricky?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's asleep.
Yeah.
Daniel watches all that stuff. Ask him.
Yeah, Daniel, can you give us an update on the House and how that's looking?
So from a political science standpoint, this is just fascinating. You go back to 2012, it's like the country was the opposite. Romney got blown out statewide in all the critical states, wasn't even close. Yet Republicans emerged from that loss with 233 House seats. Here we are, looks like it could very well be Trump will sweep all the competitive states, win decisively. And, even when Steve asked me to give him a map, I gave him a map and I tried to be optimistic, and I couldn't get Republicans past 219. Now, a lot of these are very close, but I'm just telling you, a number of Republicans look like they are losing. They're losing a few in New York. They might lose one in Steve's hometown, Miller Meeks. A lot of these are very, very close. And I think it's what Steve just said, that Republicans are swinging Philadelphia, New York, Chicago by 10 points. And in a competitive state like a Detroit, a Milwaukee, and a Wisconsin, it will get you that state. But it won't get you that congressional district. And conversely, they're receding in suburban districts. So they're going to have a problem keeping the House. Either way, this is going to be a nightmare because it's going to be determined by about 5 California seats that are going to take a week to count.
I don't know why you're laughing. I don't like you either. I'm losing friends here tonight. I'm losing allies.
I got to give a little bit of Jeremiah here.
I know. What does that mean, guys, if we don't have the House? If you win the Senate and the White House and you don't have the House and you are Donald Trump that has to move mountains, how do you do it without the House?
You look to see if there's a couple of people that you can flip that are in swing districts that because of and that have more political cover to do it because you have a more racially, ethnically diverse coalition than you had before. And yet you go to some of those places that look like some of those districts and some of those voters that you just flipped where, we got 45% of the Hispanic vote.
The problem I see with that is the Democrats eat their own.
Yeah.
You betray them. It's not like us. I mean, our side is always like, oh, okay, whatever. Where they eat them.
I think you certainly can try to flip people. I'm always about trying to recruit people and persuade people. But I think if you're Donald Trump and you win the White House and you have the Senate but you don't have the House, you focus on dismantling the administrative state. You focus on what you can do as chief executive because truthfully, I don't like that Congress constantly passes laws and legislation. I think that they are over-legislating oftentimes, and what they need to do is stop and get out of the way of what we're doing, especially out of the way of the economy. And so if Donald Trump can dismantle the administrative state, drain the swamp, deregulate businesses, and use his power and influence around the world to make our economy thriving, then he can still have a successful presidency without the House.
Yes, he can.
He will face impeachment right away.
And allow the states to secure their border. I mean, because you said get out of the way.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that Biden did. I mean, his DHS undermined every attempt of Texas to secure their border. At least Donald Trump won't be doing that.
He can also
talk about impeaching him right away. Even with a one-seat majority, they'll do it.
On what? Doesn't matter.
Being Donald Trump, I'm reminded of the old Eddie Murphy
people
joke.
hate that,
I got pulled over for being black on a sunny day. Being Donald Trump on a sunny day.
Yeah, there's a lot of interference they can run, and a lot of stuff they can throw at him. And it also, the real thing to me is, look, Congress, the House doesn't pass a budget, right? There's not even people around who remember how to pass an actual budget in Washington, D.C.
That has got to change.
Yes, it must, and it can, and it will. But they, right now, they're creatures of the administrative state. What they'd be good for is holding to account, right, with the energy of Trump in office and all the new agency heads to do a pincher movement on all those people in the administrative state that need to go. If you're going to clean out the FBI, right, you have an oversight committee. Losing that would be a problem. But it's not the be all end all. I mean, you got some time, less time than anything else to recoup, retake it over. And also, here's something to your providential point. Maybe, I hate to say it, losing is never a good thing, but maybe it's a good thing because we can actually clean out some of these leaders there who haven't done a very good job. Maybe everyone really needs to realize this needs to reorganize. You need to reorganize House leadership in a serious way because there's a certain segment of the population, including me, who I'm not sitting there crying because the leadership is doing a good job. I think they all need to go.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I think a house cleaning literally is needed.
I think, too, when it comes to the House, they're supposed to be the ones that appropriate the money. Well, money's been mismanaged by both Congress, but also by the executive branch, the administrative state, for a long time. I think we need to audit all of the federal agencies in detail. The way that a couple of congressmen and senators do this once in a while, they'll issue a report that says this is the wasteful spending. This is what it's being spent on. Donald Trump and his administration, or the RNC. We cut in?
Finish your sentence there. And
they should make a list of what is being spent in each of these people's districts and take the case to the people.
Yeah.
So that the Democrats in Congress, if they control Congress, do have to listen a little bit or be cooperative with Trump.
And I think with Elon Musk, that's going to be easier to get that message out.
Yeah.
If he starts going in, because he'll find it.
Yeah.
He'll find it. Stu.
Couple more housekeeping things to keep up with here. We have Hawaii, a stunning development, called for Kamala Harris.
What?
Yeah, 4 electoral votes to Kamala. And also one that hung around for a long time, but it winds up going to Kamala Harris, is Virginia. That is 13 electoral votes. 204 for Harris by my count, 231 for Trump.
Well, we didn't count on it anyway. It would have been nice, but we didn't count on it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you were talking about Elon Musk, and we just saw from Alex that people are leaving the Kamala rallies, that they're not excited. Well, I just saw a video of someone who's at Mar-a-Lago right now, and Elon Musk walks in with one of his little kids on his shoulders. Complete opposite feeling and atmosphere of what's going on in the Kamala camp. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but the energy is high, and Elon Musk takes a lot of credit just for that.
He's the Gutenberg of the 21st century.
He is.
What he is.
I think he's critical to the success of the Western world.
I do too.
Agree.
Yeah.
I didn't really think that at first.
Every great human reform movement in history has been accompanied by some technological paradigm shift or advancement. Whether it's the New Testament church comes on the heels of Rome colonizing the world in one culture and paving roads and securing seaways, or the difference between Martin Luther and John Wycliffe is Johannes Gutenberg. And there's no way Donald Trump wins the election without Elon Musk. No way.
And you know what?
Well, I mean, for several reasons, one of which is X. I mean, we lose Elon Musk. I think the Germans, what was it, Der Spiegel, that came out and said he's target number 2. And I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah, and he could have stopped with X. He could have stopped there, and that would have been a lot to help Western civilization. But he went above and beyond that to highlight the issues that we're dealing with and to help elect Donald Trump. I mean, that's huge.
And you
That's
know
huge.
why, right? That it wasn't just a matter of, oh, he thought that the media was lying to us. He thought that our country was verging on wokeness. This became personal to him.
They transed his
Because
kid.
of his
Yep,
kid,
he transed his kid. His
Yeah.
kid, he either lost custody of his kid or his kid went to court to change the name. And he's doing this not just to save our world, but to save other people from the heartbreak that he has felt by losing his son. It actually, when I read that story and realized that this man loves his son so much that he's willing to spend his entire fortune, risk his entire reputation so that what has happened to his son and his family doesn't happen to other people, it brought tears to my eye.
I have to tell you,
that is love.
I just saw an interview. I don't even know who was interviewing him, but I saw this interview that I've never seen anything like it before with him. He was asked, I can't remember what the question was, but it was something like, "Are you lonely?" And did anybody see this?
I didn't.
And he said, really reflective, almost to the point of tears. And he said, "Everybody says they want to be me. You don't want to be me. You don't want to be me." He said, "First of all, it's chaos in my brain all the time. All the time, it's just going a million miles an hour." And he said, "I am really lonely." And it was so sad to see this guy. But, he doesn't know how to express himself. He's, I was really offended when Tim Walz said, and he was jumping around like he was a freak or something. I'm like, since when is it you have a son of special needs and you don't see that guy has a medical condition and you feel it's okay to make fun of him?
Yeah, and here's the thing about Elon Musk. I guess that's the only thing that you can try to do is make fun of him for these dumb reasons, because what no one can deny is the kind of greatness he has. I mean, no one has run this many companies doing this kind of bold stuff at this level before. That's insane.
Yeah, it's
but the other thing is, don't you think that what he did, he initiated a commercial cultural movement that showed that statesmanship extends beyond the political sphere.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he bought Twitter for political reasons.
Yep.
Sure, there are self-interested reasons in there too, but he has planted the flag and said, I mean, this was not a good business decision in many ways.
Yeah.
And he's saying, I am going to actually be a statesman. I care about what's going on in my country. And he just kept on doing it.
Well, it's like Donald Trump. Also not necessarily a good business decision for him to get into politics.
Horrible.
Right.
And I mean, they have that in common.
So, I look at what Elon Musk, did you hear what he announced this week? That he said that he's developing a way now to where his brain interface can be introduced. It's like a sewing machine. It just takes this thing and just like through the skull and puts these, like antenna in your brain. He said you'll be able to do it almost as easy as like LASIK. So you'll be up and running. It won't be a big deal.
What's it for?
Yeah, what's the purpose of this?
Oh, it's his brain. What do you call that thing?
This is
He'll
Neuralink.
no longer be
Neuralink.
So this is
Neuralink.
This is where
Okay.
the Elon Musk discussion takes a different
Takes a
tone.
different tone.
Because
he
it
is
sounds like a lobotomy.
he is saying that it will be affordable for everyone. It will be easy to get, and it is the Borg. It's the singularity of man
ever
and
do
machine
that?
becoming one. Never.
Oh, okay.
Never.
I talked to my daughter who has cerebral palsy, and she has horrible seizures again. She had brain surgery, and it worked for a while, and then it stopped, and now they're much worse.
Yeah.
She has very hard time communicating with people because she had strokes, and so her brain mapping, brain just works like it's just all interstate highways. And because she had so much scarring on her brain, part of her language is over here, part of her language is over here, her memories are here, and all of the roadways are broken, okay? So it takes her a lot of work, and it's so sad to watch because she works so hard just to be able to speak.
She knows that the highways aren't connected, and
She
wants
knows.
to
I mean,
connect them. It's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, she is at a totally functioning level.
Yes.
And I asked her, I said, honey, would you ever consider this, hoping that she would say no. I said, would you ever consider this? And she said, Dad, I know how much it would change and how easier my life would be. She said, but I know the Lord will heal me when I get to the other side. And I don't want any man to do that to me.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, I mean, I just sobbed for a week. But
yeah, of course.
that
profound. It's so
profound.
Oh.
But how many people you're going to be convinced, because I've studied this for 30 years now, when it's cheap and everybody starts to get it, and you have the advantage of, I can access all of the information right now that you don't have, I stomp you in business and everything else. How many people are going to accept that just because I've got to compete?
Yeah. I do wonder if Elon, as he kind of evolves and changes in his thinking, if he will also realize the dangers of the advancement of things like AI, which I think he already does in some ways, for sure. But, you know, he calls himself, in the Tucker interview, he called himself a cultural Christian, which is what Richard Dawkins called himself too. And the more I think he moves into realizing that people are made in God's image, that we are separate and distinct from technology, plants, animals, and all of that, I hope that that also shapes his development of the technology.
So you know why he's doing Neuralink is the main reason is because he feels that AI will destroy mankind. It's not just getting off the surface of the earth because of global warming. He also believes mankind has to be off the earth by the time we have the singularity moment. And he said the only thing that will keep us from being eaten by these machines is if we can interface and keep up with it.
Compete.
And compete with it, which is terrifying. Let me go to stage 2 and spend some time with Sarah and what you guys are following over there.
Yeah, so the New York Times now is projecting that Donald Trump wins the popular vote by 1.1%. So again, take that for what it's worth, but you have the New York Times reporting that. I know James had something to add to your conversation about religion and technology. That's right up your alley.
Yeah, just obviously, you know, a huge outpouring of gratitude toward Elon Musk and the whole crew of super friends that he brought along with him and organized. You know, it wasn't just him who bought Twitter and turned it into X. He had a lot of support behind it. And, you know, I think that what we're looking at right now is tech kind of picked up the crown in the gutter of the right. And right now, as of right now, you know, Donald Trump, obviously a big guy, but tech has really moved to that power position on the right. And that's an opportunity. There's also a risk there. We just saw tonight the Church of Woke that they tried to spend 4 years turning into the established religion of the United States fail. People saw what they were doing. They sampled it out. They tried the DEI and the ESG and all the rest, and they didn't like it. They spat it out. Now is the time for us to recognize that the Church of Tech is not what should be replacing the Church of Woke. I know there's a lot of interest and even hope and kind of, you know, a lot of people on the right just wanting to kind of give everything to these guys who wrote in with their money and their cool tech. Don't fall on your knees and worship them. You can appreciate them as the human beings they are, and should be a return of politics, should be a return of governance, of people really rediscovering that we have a constitution and we have a rule of law, and when we put our heads together, we can solve practical problems and build on a foundation of rock and not a foundation of sand. The era when, you know, intellectuals told us what to do and ideology ruled everything, that's behind us now. Intellectualism doesn't solve our problems down at the soul level. Americans are right to realize that we live in a spiritual world now, and that spiritual authority is what people are thirsting for. You got to look somewhere other than the material world for that, though. You can't look at tech in the same way that you can't look at woke. And if we have that kind of perspective, then it's really going to help us be able to use those tools wisely to strengthen our form of government, strengthen our way of life, and ultimately preserve our humanity itself.
Let's go back to Elon Musk, because I think he kind of embodies what James is talking about here. And I want to get back to kind of the point that we were touching on earlier, which is, you know, you have all of this money that is being invested in these elections. And honestly, in Elon's case, I don't even want to say in the election necessarily, because his was a little bit different. He tweaked it. It was about supporting a pledge to support the Constitution, not necessarily the election. But Oren, what kind of standard do you think that sets? I know the left will call it dark money, because whenever it's money going to a Republican or someone who supports the Constitution, it all of a sudden becomes dark money. But what is the standard that you see being set here?
I think the shift we're really noticing is the awareness of the power of kind of the oligarchs, right? We have George Soros on the left, and this is the boogeyman. This is what everybody points to. He's funding everything, and they're right to point this out. It's a very dangerous and deleterious effect on our electorate. But ultimately, we're also seeing that the right is now moving in this direction. Donald Trump himself is a billionaire. Elon Musk is credited with so much of this election. Think of what the Democrats could have gotten away with if Twitter was not free, if you could not share this information, if the Democrats did not know ahead of time that there was a free and fair platform that was going to share out any of the shenanigans that happened during this election. That is a chilling effect on their attempt to go ahead and do the things that they're doing. But as James is pointing out, you have Mark Andreessen, you have David Sachs, you have all of these other people who are involved in shifting the landscape on the right. And it's this battle of money power where the power is not just in the formal government, but we're starting to recognize that it's the control of the media, it's the control of corporations, it's the control of many things that are not directly involved in the electoral process that ultimately bring serious results during the electoral process. And that is a mindset that we really have to understand. It isn't maybe the best ultimately for what people understand as democracy, but it is also a reality that's going to continue going forward.
Yeah, I think another piece of that is the RNC. You see what happens, the difference between the RNC being run by Ronna Romney McDaniel, and of course you see a Laura Trump and Michael Whatley. And so just to add to Oren's point here, Delano, Michael Whatley, I know this is a couple hours old now, but he did tweet out that they had a legal victory in Pennsylvania. They said Center County officials were planning to stop counting ballots throughout the night. Well, it turns out that's in violation of the state law, and so all they had to do was threaten to sue, and officials agreed that they would continue the count as requested. So you've got this swarm of attorneys that they've brought into all of these swing states watching and threatening to sue, and that seems to have made a lot of difference too.
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, what we're seeing this time around, a lot of people liken Trump's victory in 2016 as sort of a middle finger to the establishment. This is the second hand being raised at this point. And I think a lot of people are actually drawn to that. And again, my mind is thinking, okay, if things hold, what does this mean for the Republican Party? And Steve brought up the role of conservative Christians, evangelicals, and where they sort of play and where they are with this new coalition. I understand why some evangelicals said, look, Trump moved to the left on abortion, on some other issues, and we're not comfortable with that. I respect every person, however they want to exercise their right to vote or not vote. But when it comes to some of these issues, particularly on family policy, on abortion, obviously it's a state issue, but the president has a tremendous bully pulpit. And if every time a state looks to enact stricter abortion laws, a heartbeat bill, if he's constantly saying, oh, no, that's too tough, we need to give it more time, then you are going to have evangelicals who question whether they have a place in the party. When it comes to IVF, wide open policy sort of terrain. Even when it comes to issues, again, of marriage and family, things that have been decided. But again, you can use the bully pulpit. And I'm not sure whether Trump is going to use his bully pulpit in ways that social conservatives want, because honestly, and we've learned this from Republicans over the years, the good life is more than just about, a roaring economy and nice looking GDPs. Like the good life is about how people live their lives. It's about family and friends and community. And I think, again, we're at a point where it's like, okay, what are these new coalitions going to want, right? Can you have a party that is open to both your most conservative evangelical pastor and Caitlyn Jenner?
Bruce Jenner.
Quite a big tent.
Bruce Jenner.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, can you actually have that? And on the issue of particularly like gender ideology,
right,
what does that look like? Now for many of us, we'll say tear the whole thing out of the culture, root and branch.
Mm-hmm.
But my fear is what conservatives will say is, well, get boys out of girls' sports, get boys out of girls' locker rooms, and then we're done and we can leave the rest to the states. And I don't think social conservatives are going to take that laying down.
I will say, on Donald Trump's part of his platform is eliminating gender ideology from all levels of government that he can, and also eliminating any sort of transitioning, cross-sex hormones, gender surgeries for children. So that is part of his platform. Now, I get your point, like whether or not he actually follows through with all of that is another piece of it. Daniel, I know you want to chime in.
Look, I waited till after midnight Eastern time to bring this, but we talk about D's and R's all night.
Don't you do it.
But there are the C's. There are the C's. There are the conservatives. And I think we do have to recognize that, hopefully if Trump wins, this is a reprieve, but Republicans still suck. And, I'll just say, look, it was very clear in Florida we were going to be victorious against abortion there. Yet when Trump was asked about it today, he refused to talk about it. It looks like we will win against abortion, probably in Nebraska and South Dakota. We had a movement against it in South Dakota, spent some money. In Missouri and Montana, it's looking not good, but only by a few points because the Republican governors refused to touch it. Had they campaigned against it, there's no way we wouldn't have gotten a few extra points given the voter registration edge. So my point is, no matter what, we have our work cut out for ourselves. The Republican Party has not changed, not at an elected level.
You gotta be so negative all the time. Daniel is our stew of stage 2. So you know how the stew of stage 2. I've renamed you, Daniel. So you know how we have that little alert, the little ding for whenever Stu is calling races. I would ask the control room next time. I want a little alert, a special alert for wellness check on mainstream media, because they are taking this as you might expect. Let's play Joy Reid over on MSNBC. Watch.
On this set numerous times is that you have a state where you've got a 6-week abortion or a 12-week abortion. I think theirs might be 12 weeks.
Yep.
But it's a state where women lost their reproductive rights, where there was a very heavy push to get women to focus on not putting in place, re-electing, putting back into the White House the person who was responsible for taking those rights away and restoring them. But that message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris, a fellow woman. This will be the second opportunity that white women in this country have to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy. And, God bless Shannon Watts, who has tried to have that conversation. But if people aren't receptive to it, and if people vote more, party line or more on race than on gender and on protecting their gender, there's really not much more that you can do but tell people what the risks are and leave it to them to do the right thing.
Right, because it couldn't possibly be, guys. It couldn't possibly be that instead of picking race or gender to vote on, they were voting on what they were watching around them. They were voting on the economy. They were voting on their children being less safe because they're watching the Laken Rileys of the world, the Jocelyn Nungareys of the world be murdered in cold blood by illegal immigrants who came here under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's watch. I mean, the audacity of this woman to claim that white women had an opportunity to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy, and yet they chose to vote based on race rather than gender, is just, these people should never be taken seriously again, James.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, the end of rule by flattery.
Yeah.
This is the irony of intersectionality is that for every identity group that you give some sort of flattering, you can be whoever you want and we'll support you and cheer for you. But guess what? The flip side to that is not only do you have something to be proud of no matter who you say you are, you have something to be ashamed of too. Mm-hmm. And so every one of those identity groups, is sort of experiencing the dark underbelly of that ideology, which is actually you're a bad person too. And when people look around and they say, actually, no, there are like bad things happening to me, and we're going to vote based on those.
Yeah, Delano, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, one, I'll give Joy Reid this. It seems that she's gotten so mad she took off Donald Trump's old toupee, and I think that's for the good. I think she looks a lot better this way. But the other thing is that the people who talk the most about the right being racist have no problem weaponizing race as long as it's against white people.
Right.
And this is why MSNBC and CNN are not honest brokers when it comes to these conversations. The other thing is that I think political pundits who do not recognize the power of party ID, to me, should not have jobs speaking in public, because they blame 53% of white women voted for Trump in 2016. but that's a similar percentage of white women who always vote Republican. So it is incredibly difficult to sort of detach a person from their normal voting habits and then turn them in a different direction. So this notion that where you presuppose that all white women should just vote for, women's rights, which to them is just always abortion, is such a silly idea. But I'm glad to see that they're taking it rough. I hope that they will have some sense of self-awareness and self-reflection. But I'm not bullish on that.
Well, I would just say it couldn't happen to a more deserving group of people.
Agreed.
I keep posing the question on my show, is this going to be the final nail in the coffin for DEI at government levels, right? Because Kamala was the ultimate DEI hire, wasn't she? I mean, she really hadn't accomplished much. No offense, but not a lot going on up there, always word salads. And so you look at all of these DEI hires within the Biden regime, and you look at the Rachel Levine, and you look at Karine Jean-Pierre, and you look at Kamala Harris, and you
Sam
look
Brinton,
at
too.
Sam Brinton, yeah, thank you. And you look at all of these DEI hires that it's just gone disastrously for them to have Kamala to stage a coup to put their DEI, their ultimate DEI hire, up on the platform and have this end not well for them. Can we finally just say, you know what, maybe DEI was not a great idea, Warren?
Well, we can't. And the reason is that it's literally illegal. Most conservatives don't understand even what disparate impact says in the United States civil rights law right now. It says that any difference between any groups and their outcomes has to be basically based on the system. That has to be the default assumption. And when you have that written into law, it's not new. It's not just part of wokeness. It's back in Griggs versus Duke Power in the 1970s, and then reified by the Republicans in the Civil Rights Act in the 1990s. And so this is going to continue to be on the docket. Now, we may see this be dialed back when it comes to prioritizing it, pushing it to the front for a little while in certain candidates, but it's going to be ingrained in law, and it will continue to reflect itself in all of our organizations and all of our government apparatus.
Daniel, you look like Daniel's over here like, wow, ooh, ah. What do you see?
So look, I refuse to make a prediction before the election, but
Hold on. Is this positive news?
This is positive news.
Okay,
for once,
I'll
but
allow
it. Might
it.
be the last piece of positive news from me this night. So I just said one thing. I said, look, whoever wins Northampton County in Pennsylvania will be the president. Just because I identified that as the tipping point. And Erie would be the second one. Trump has won both of those counties, Erie and Northampton. So I think it's lights out.
Guys, again, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm feeling a little bit of a tinge of the PTSD from the last time around. How are you feeling, James?
I'm feeling like they should call it. Like, let's face it. I mean, we see the trend lines. We see the lead that Trump has here. Not calling it at this point is begging the question at best, and at worst, opening the door to those shenanigans that none of us want to see again.
How much are you saying that because you're just tired and you want to go to bed?
About 30%.
What do you guys think? How do you feel about it?
I mean, I feel pretty good in terms of.
Should I feel better? I feel like I can't let myself get there.
I'm the type of guy I like to see triple zeros on the clock before I start to celebrate. So
right.
Yeah, one of the things I was just going to say that I think is an open question. I'm curious what Glenn and Steve and the others think about this. Is, with Trump kind of bleeding some of the white suburban voters, but clearly netting more minorities in the urban areas that allowed him to presumably win this. Are those new minority voters going over to other Republican candidates or only Trump? Because I'm seeing some weakness in Republican races elsewhere.
Yeah, let's see if Glenn wants to answer that after we give this election update.
Yeah, let me go to Stu first with the election update. What do you have, Stu?
Well, we have an update in New Mexico, where the state has now been called for Kamala Harris. That's 5 electoral votes. Gets her to 209. So 231 to 209 is our count right now. We also have some interesting stuff in the Senate. I know, obviously the presidential race is the top of the ticket and kind of the thing everybody's thinking about. But there's a path here for maybe 55 senators in the Senate for the Republicans. Right now, it's interesting because you look at those 3 blue wall states where right now, it looks like, these are not called, but it looks like Trump has a small lead in all 3 of them.
Would that take him to 270?
What's that?
Would those three take him to 270?
Yeah, he's way back, way past.
Okay, so here, I just was with the staff out in the think tank area, where everybody is watching every county and everything else. Two of these states, Georgia and Pennsylvania, and I think Wisconsin is getting close. They're at 93%, and they're stuck at 93% of the counting. There is no reason. What I think they're doing, I just sent a note to somebody. I think they are stalling on these things because they don't want to say 270.
Oh.
And if they start to say, you know what, it's just too close to call tonight, we're going to start tomorrow, President Trump must declare victory. Absolutely. He needs to declare victory because this is, Sarah just said, I'm getting a little flashback PTSD here. There's no reason Georgia hasn't been called. None. Pennsylvania, maybe there's a reason. From what I understand, though, they've counted all of the blue areas, or at least the vast majority of the blue. It's really red remaining.
Nate Cohn of the New York Times said that for Kamala to win any of these three states, she would have to surpass Joe Biden's 2020 turnout in Milwaukee, Detroit, and Philadelphia.
And it's not going to happen.
And she's not.
It's not going to happen.
She's underperforming Biden everywhere.
He should absolutely.
We are seeing. We are getting close to the time. If they don't declare this pretty soon, we're getting dangerously close to the theft of this election.
Yes, we are.
So this reminds you more of 2020 than it does 2016 when we fell asleep and we woke up to good news.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this if they stop, if they don't declare tonight on those three states, we're going to wake up tomorrow and they may still be counting, or it will go the other way.
He should absolutely come out and declare victory. They don't have a path. There's no point anymore.
What does that do? If he comes out and declares victory, does that change anything? How does it help him?
Actually, it further marginalizes mainstream media, demonstrates we've moved past you.
Yeah.
You're irrelevant. You don't get to make the calls here.
But does it affect anything?
The average person hates the media, doesn't care.
It does affect, once you declare victory, it cements it in the minds of people. Okay.
I'm afraid it's going to cause chaos.
Well, it's going to cause chaos, but you know, it'll cause more chaos.
Yeah.
More chaos. This is why I think, didn't Al Gore declare victory in 2020?
CNN called Georgia.
They called Georgia?
CNN did.
For
Trump.
It would be shocking if they did it the other way.
Well, you never know.
I know. That would be a 2020
know.
flashback.
Okay.
You really don't know, do you? I mean,
no.
They're watching. Who knows? I feel like if they're going to declare Donald Trump the winner, they're going to do it at like 3:17.
See, that's exactly why. If they don't want to give him, it's either the steal is on or deny him a mandate, that kind of a thing. And exactly what Stu just said, do it at 3 a.m.
Delay allows for any kind of excuse to come up, you know.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The more time that goes on, the more they can say, look, votes was suppressed over here, or this happened over here.
If you are a business person and you know you're dead and dead in the water, you don't want to say we're dead in the water until you've exhausted, until you've met with everybody and said, is there anything that we can do here?
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. And they have the middle of the night to do that.
I think, too, there's a motivation from the media's perspective is they don't want the thing that happened to Fox to happen to them. They don't want to be responsible for that call of the big state that everyone's holding out hope for, right? Because everyone on MSNBC's audience, if they call Michigan right now, they're going to get pissed not at Donald Trump. They're going to get pissed at MSNBC.
What has to happen, though, is, and this is where it is critical for the people like you, Stu, honestly, to go and take a break, go back in and look at the counties, because you can only do that so far. You know, if you're at 94, 95%, and you still have a big blue area to count, there's reason not to call it. But if you're only looking at red counties left, that's suspect.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, I mean, certainly like Georgia, you guys just mentioned that potentially it was called. I haven't seen it yet. We haven't called it yet. But
they were watching it live out there.
yeah, okay, because all the fun people apparently out in the hallway. This room is like dead. I don't know.
No.
We're the most fun. What are you talking about?
No, it's the terror of 2020. I feel like. I mean,
It is.
this news coming into tonight, I feel like this room would have been like cheerful. Like there would have been like a disco ball coming down.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn would have been doing go-go dancing of some sort.
I left my boots at home.
You did? Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
But with this, I feel like the aura of 2020, where like there was so much hope and then it all sort of disappeared. It's sensible to be patient and wait, but it is like the way this night has gone has been considerably better than a lot of people expected, and there's still more ground.
We're all in our hunting clothes. And we are going hunting again for the first time with Dick Cheney after he blew somebody's face off. That's what's happening. We're all like, okay, I feel pretty good about this, but
there's a look around of just panic, right? Like I feel like there's this like whole, and like this kind of makes sense, right? Like if you really if you look back in your view on the 2020 election is that it was stolen. I don't see how you could be confident right now, right? Like there's three, he needs to pick off one of these states. They're all really close. Mm-hmm. They're all run by Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like if that is your view of how 2020 went down, I can understand there being a real terror here. And none of these states are sure things. They look good, but they're not sure things.
If they call Georgia, they call Pennsylvania, the president should declare victory. I really do. I think he.
Oh yeah.
If they cannot shut this down tonight.
We just reported that Kamala she will not speak tonight. So that just came across from our main feed.
We're getting reports. I'm just hearing in my ear. We're getting reports that Trump will.
He should absolutely declare victory.
See if he.
By the way, I did see also a report that people were starting to stream out of Howard University, where Kamala's headquarters was, and that's just a sad update now, isn't it? The only thing I want more than that tonight is to see Tim Walz look sad. I want can we get a sad Tim Walz camera? We need to send a correspondent out just to have a camera on Tim Walz's face as he turns super sad.
You know what? It's such a sad. It's sad and pathetic that I feel this way, but it's the way I feel. I want them to lose Minnesota so bad.
I know.
That would feel so good.
It would.
Poetic justice.
Yeah, I mean, it's so pathetic that I want that to happen, but I really want.
Well, they deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They deserve that loss.
What are the numbers in Minnesota right now?
I think it's going to go to the Democrats. It's close. It's closer than they wanted it to be, especially when you take somebody and you put them on their ticket that no one's ever heard of outside of the state. You'd think you win the state.
And if everybody loves him because he's everybody's dad and he's everybody's favorite teacher and everything else, they should have won that state by at least 10 points. At least. It's Minnesota.
Yeah.
They should have probably won it by 25 points.
And Klobuchar won easily there. There was no problem in the Senate race. It's just the president.
No, remember Amy? Wow.
She had the potential to be okay and then was terrible.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
she
is
throw
a person
fork
has
at a staffer.
Minnesota.
She threw a fork at a staffer.
That's
or something
right.
like that. Something crazy.
And ate salad with a comb.
I wonder when we
I
start.
totally forgot about her.
When
She
do
was
we
fun to follow.
When do we start hearing the truth again about Kamala? That her staff hated her.
She was a nightmare to work with.
Tomorrow, you think?
Yeah, because they're going to want a distance from her because they're going to want a future in her political. Here's an interesting thought that I had a moment ago. Think about that debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden that ended Joe Biden's political career. He might have not only ended his own political career, but Kamala Harris's as well in one debate performance.
Do you think they wish they would have stuck with Biden, considering Biden outperformed how Kamala Harris is doing right now?
They may.
I mean,
Which is crazy. A comatose.
Jill must just be.
When we
her
talk
head
about
must be.
Trump declaring victory and a statement that this would make, literally stepping over the carcass of the media to go directly to the American people and claim victory. I mean, my phone blew up Saturday night because of a poll that showed Kamala Harris is going to win by 3 points in my home state. It was on all the Sunday shows. It was their their marker of momentum. They all discussed it. They all pumped this poll. 94% of the vote is in my home state of Iowa. Trump is ahead by 14 points. Ann Seltzer was off 17 points. Okay, and that is, to me, that is an obituary for corporate media.
Yes.
He should step over their carcass and then maybe step on their neck and just pause for a second and squeeze really hard to take the next step, and then step over the carcass, go to the microphone, and declare victory to the American people. And that as the ultimate, we're moving past you. Here's your red shirt. He's dead, Jim. Move on.
So tell me, if he wins Georgia, and Pennsylvania, how close is he to 270?
There, he gets Georgia and Pennsylvania. I mean, he's already won Georgia.
230 now.
He would technically need to win Arizona, which is head in. But if he wins Pennsylvania, he's not going to have trouble doing that. I mean, it's just a matter of him getting over that finish line, which, he's still got a little work to do. But he's in good position in all three of those states. I mentioned, Glenn, earlier quickly about the Senate, which was where we kind of started with this. The three swing states, those three blue wall Senate races, a lot of the polling showed Donald Trump ahead 4 or 5 points of these Senate candidates, but they're actually tracking much better in these races. Now, if you feel like Donald Trump's going to win these races by 2 to 4 points, potentially, McCormick is only behind him by 1 point, Rogers in Michigan only behind by 2, and Hovde in Wisconsin is only behind by 1. If you kind of look a little bit down the line, Carrie Lake is behind by 6, so I don't know that she's going to get there. But
I was shocked.
You have a real chance. And if you get those three, you're pretty much at 55 with Nebraska, which looks like it's going to come through, and Montana, which is still up in the air but also looks positive.
I was shocked that I was with Mike Lee a couple of weeks ago at a Trump thing, and Carrie Lake was there, and we were listening to her on stage. He said, out of all of them, I want her the most. And I said, really? And he said, she is a fighter. Like it, hate it. He said, she will go down swinging.
Yeah.
And we need people that will swing.
I believe that.
He's up 6 points in Michigan with 60% of the vote.
Let me
6.
Yeah, this is it's crazy what they're doing right now. And think about what's happening. Let's go back to the media point. Donald Trump has made the enemy, the media, for a long time. And we've all remembered, we lived through 20 years of primaries where there'd be a folk hero who would arise in the Republican Party, who would take on the media, and popularity would go up, but that person could never really win. Mm-hmm. That was the routine. I mean, there was some hero who very conservative people loved, and they would directly take on the media, and the crowd would cry, but they would always drop out. Trump doubled down on that. So we can't forget this. I mean, they think that they beat him last time, and they have put themselves into this. And so if the media loses, why don't they want to show him get to 270? Mm-hmm. Because if they lose this time, they lose for real.
Correct.
They lose for real. They lose culturally. They lose in the public mind. All the elites who want to go on those shows realize their power is vanquished in front of the entire country.
Agreed.
So you have the New York Times now calling Georgia, which brings their count up to 243. Is that right?
246, I think.
246. And I mean, 90% chance of win.
93%.
I mean, 93.
Yeah.
And they're saying that he's going to win 302. I mean,
my analysis is that this was somewhat obvious several hours ago.
Oh,
I mean, Georgia was clearly obvious several hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think a Trump victory was clear several hours ago, but what Stu said a moment ago was accurate, that we have skepticism for last-minute steals. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the red mirage thing where it's like, oh, the rural counties are counted first and the urban votes, the blue votes come in later. We are nervous that there are going to be vote counts that are stopped, that there's going to be shady stuff overnight. But RNC Chair Michael Whatley posted, this was probably 2.5 hours ago, that they tried to stop counting votes somewhere, but it's against the, I think it was in Pennsylvania, I'd have to look that up. But their lawyers were immediately on top of that and said, you're not allowed to do that.
Yep.
You're not allowed to do that. And within minutes, that count had restarted.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Do you remember?
I would not be waiting. I would declare.
In 2020, if I don't know if you guys even know this, I went. I don't give political donations, and I went to Washington to present Trump with a extraordinarily large check. And I said, I am not giving it to the GOP, and I'm not giving it to you for your campaign. I'm giving it to you for the defense that you are going to need, because I couldn't get anybody to listen. They wouldn't listen. You are headed toward a nightmare of chaos, and you need to concentrate on the election possibly being stolen and what comes after. This time, they're very well aware. They are very well aware.
Yeah, and a lot of people just don't know what these organizations are doing behind the scenes, but organizations like Heritage Foundation and others have been working for the past 4 years just to make sure that our integrity is actually maintained. And so, there's nothing we can do about it right now except for watch, and I do have to trust that there are people doing good work.
Yeah, Ricky, can you see, Ricky, our executive producer, can you see if we can get Harmeet on just to talk about the possibility of shenanigans going on now in Pennsylvania? Okay.
In the meantime.
Yeah, so let me quickly go to Alex. He has just gotten out of a bar where you were surrounded by Harris supporters. What was their mood, Alex?
Glenn, it is a very somber evening in Capitol Hill at the moment. And I'm not kidding. Just pan over here just real quick, Brandon. I don't know if you guys can see it, but the bars are all shut down. Everybody's closed. And normally they say on election night they're open till 2. Everybody's, partying, having fun. Everybody's in bed, crying themselves to sleep tonight. And Donald Trump, I believe, with the Georgia victory, I think it's over. But I'm not an expert to your level, but it looks like we might have won this thing, Glenn.
Yeah, I think so too. Now we're just in a really spooky area where, are they going to try to shut it down tonight and steal it? But I think
Trump won Tim Walz's home county.
That's amazing. Where they presented him with Teacher of the Universe.
He won Tim Walz's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Alex, did you actually go to a bar and surrounded by them? What was the legitimate mood there?
No, Glenn, I'm not kidding. No, we literally went here before last call. They said that they would be open till 2 a.m. and, they're closed less than 1 a.m. And everybody in there, I'm not exaggerating, all sad, all depressed. A woman was literally out here crying. We were going to interview her, but she said she wanted to get back to her kids because she was that sad. It's a very somber mood. You saw they didn't even have a vice president go and speak at her own rally.
No,
so
she
it's
just
finished.
said she
it's
won't.
Over.
That's so shades of Hillary 2016.
Exactly right.
It's so true.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Hey, can we get Jill back from the Trump? I'd like to hear the difference of what's happening with the Trump campaign.
The New York Times has shifted it to 95% chance of Trump victory.
From?
93.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even see the 93.
Yeah.
I'm super excited because, and Liz, you talk about this all the time, but it seems like in several states, including North Dakota, people are rejecting the legalization of marijuana, which I'm like, take that, potheads. I hate
Take that,
weed.
potheads.
And
People are
I'm
sick of the
excited
smell.
about that.
I gotta
I'm
tell
sick
you,
of the smell.
I don't remember what city I was in. It may have been Washington, D.C. And walking around, it's just pot everywhere.
It's
and
terrible. Did you know if you talk about this topic, you'll lose more followers than if you talk about any other topic?
Really?
I get the most unsubscribers when I start raging about marijuana.
Well, I love marijuana.
Look, we
Got a newfound respect.
We came to
thank you.
Texas. We're walking by a lake, and my daughter, I'll never forget this. We've been in Texas a few years, and we were walking by this crew of guys, and they got the boom box, and they're just, they're chilling, and they're playing the music loud. Yes.
1995.
Yes.
They had the yellow Walkman, too.
I just gave you a Gen X mind. They had probably a little box, right? A little speaker.
Bluetooth
yes,
speaker?
like a Bluetooth
Yeah.
speaker.
Oh.
In my head, it's still boom box, so whatever. But they're
Mine,
doing
it's
this.
a phonograph.
Yeah. So they're walking by us, and my daughter says loud enough for them to hear, "Dad, it smells like when we go to California."
Oh my goodness.
so
Out of the mouths of babes.
She meant getting off the plane at LAX, right?
Oh,
Because it
smells like
smelled heavily.
I have to tell you, one of my kids, I don't remember which one of my kids, we were walking around and you could clearly smell it. And one of my kids was like, oh, they're smoking dope. And I thought, how do you know what dope smells like? And she's like, it's everywhere in our schools.
Yeah.
It's everywhere in the school.
Disgusting.
That's horrible.
No, it's not a good thing.
All right. Let's see. Well, let's go back to Sarah. We were in the middle of an interesting conversation with you, Sarah, and I completely forgot what it was about. Can you refresh my memory?
Sure can't, Glenn. Sure can't. But I will say, notice the stark contrast. You guys mentioned the Kamala campaign HQ saying that, telling their supporters basically to go home, that she will not be addressing the nation tomorrow. Now, there's no word on whether that's because she's too drunk to actually coherently speak, although she never really coherently spoke to begin with. But then on the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who is making his way, reports are, to Mar-a-Lago to address his supporters. What a contrasting turn of events.
Wait. To Mar-a-Lago, because he was at Mar-a-Lago. He's having kind of more of a private party at Mar-a-Lago. Was he on his way?
He's on his way to address the
convention
supporters.
Center? Okay.
Yeah, he's on his way to address the supporters. According to James found several different sources that said that that he's there and he's ready to address his supporters. So just an interesting turn of events, because we were having this conversation at the table. If Kamala knew that the fix was in, and if she expected that there would be some sort of overnight dump, would you not address your supporters? Would you not go out there and say, hey, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
I don't think
there's still more votes to be counted.
I don't think she is honestly capable of that. And I don't mean this as a harsh criticism. I think this is probably true. Remember, she's not liked by her staff. She apparently is not a pleasant person. And when you see her in the campaign, she has flashes of this. He should not ever be able to stand behind this seat. You know what I mean? She gets that nasty tone. If it's not going well, it might have been a good idea not to put her out on the stage, because I'm not sure she could be gracious losing or at least tonight. It was kind of like Hillary. I think it would have been a much bigger mistake for her to come out and say something. I've seen it before where candidates will come out and say, we don't know, but just, hey, keep the faith, hang in. She's not capable of that, I believe.
Right. Well, and apparently neither are some of her staffers. James, you were reading another tweet, X post, whatever you want to call it, that said that the staffers were not saying very kind things to Fox News.
No, very hostile environment, so hostile that they could not reprint what it was that was being said to them. I mean, look, beyond
wait.
whether or not Harris has the disposition to go out there.
Did you get that, Glenn?
Yeah. So her staff was talking to Fox News and they couldn't even print it?
Fox News said that it was so hostile that they couldn't print what they were being told by the Harris campaign.
Yeah, that's why she's not coming out. She's not capable of being pleasant.
Well, and also you got to think about the amount of drinking that was done.
Sounds right.
I'm not trying to be hard-hearted, but any person who was set up for that kind of loss would probably be throwing them back by now tonight.
Well, especially if you're usually 4 glasses of wine into things, by 4 in the afternoon. Liz just brought up something. Didn't Hillary throw a lamp?
Am I having a false memory, or did that happen?
It was
I have no idea, but I got your back. It totally happened.
Yeah, it was
Definitely.
It was either with the Lewinsky thing or the 16 thing, or both.
Or
No,
the
I was
Benghazi
like 5
thing.
years
I
old when
can't,
that.
Yeah.
Just can't remember.
All right, let me go to Liz, who is Jill, who is out now at the Trump headquarters. Jill, we have seen now the Harris campaign that thing is over. They've all gone home. The bars are all closed. What's the mood there in Florida?
Well, I can tell you, Glenn, this campaign has been all about the vibes, right? That's what Kamala Harris tried to run on, the vibes are in this room right now at Trump headquarters. And I can tell you, they've gone in waves, right? It feels like they're trying to save some of their energy. They've had high points where they get really excited, and then the room kind of dies down a little. But I'll tell you what, in the last 20 minutes or so, this room behind me has started to fill up. People in the hallways have started to come in, and they celebrated Georgia going to Donald Trump, not once, but twice in the room. And people, every time, they just get more energized. But when Kamala Harris had some sad... They put Donald Trump up on the Jumbotron where he's dancing, and it's the YMCA, and it gets the room going all over again. So they have been piping in some of the Kamala Harris sad news, but I can tell you as well, I've seen more Secret Service presence in the last 20 minutes or so, so we do anticipate to see something from Donald Trump here pretty soon.
Yeah, we've heard he's on his way. Thank you very much. We'll continue to check in with you. Are you guys leaving or are you staying? Do you know? Are you leaving?
I think we're leaving.
I think you're leaving.
Yeah. Unless something happens in the next few minutes.
Okay, yeah, and I have an event out west, and I've got a 3-hour flight I have to catch tonight. So I'm going to be...
Well, our kids don't catch the memo that we were up late, so they'll still be waking me up at 6 a.m.
And then I have a broadcast early tomorrow morning, so...
so no sleep for you.
No sleep for me, but I'll be shortly leaving here. It's now 1 a.m. Eastern time in the East Coast of America, and we're expecting to hear from Donald Trump. We're still taking your phone calls, or I'm sorry, your comments online if you're a Blaze TV subscriber. By the way, we invite you to join us and become a member of the family. You'll save $47 in honor of the 47th president, who I declare to be Donald J. Trump. That's right, Stu. Take that.
It's done.
We're calling it a night. Good night, everybody.
Stu was like this one lovely laugh back there.
You didn't just say it, you declared it.
I like Steve's idea, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's up over 200,000 votes with 93% of the vote in Pennsylvania.
I know.
What are we doing here?
You still think he wins a popular vote?
I know.
What's that?
You still think he wins a popular vote?
Yeah, I think he's going to win the popular vote, unless, unless California comes in with Venezuela-like margins, he'll win.
Here's what I'm waiting for, Steve. I am waiting for somebody with either Stu and his staff or the people in the think tank right now that are crunching the numbers. I'm waiting to see, are there any dense blue areas that remain to be counted?
So Nate Cohn of the New York Times, I think I said this a little while ago, he said on television that for Kamala to win any of the blue wall states, she would require in Milwaukee, Detroit, and Philadelphia more turnout than Joe Biden received in 2020, and that was like an hour ago.
I know. No. But I want to make sure that's what I'm waiting for, and I think, Stu, that's what you're waiting for to call it. Is you want to make sure that there are no blue pockets that they could pull out. If they have counted the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, then there's no reason that's not being called. There's no reason.
Well, New York Times is now, it's moved from lean Trump to likely Trump, and they're saying there's more than a 95% chance, very likely that Trump wins the entire election.
Okay, good. Let me go to Hillary. Hillary, what are people saying online?
Well, so you've heard what we've said here in the studio. We do want to know what you at home think. And so we asked you, do you think that Trump will be declared the winner tonight?
Yeah.
Timothy 2 said, God willing, yes, they will call it for Trump tonight. BJ Jones said, I feel better, but not sure that I can go to sleep because of the cheating possibility. Anticipation is sickening because, yes, we were also scarred from the last one. And then G. Kaba said, not a chance they'll call it. They'll find a way to weasel this on as long as they can. True. But we do have a reaction from the left. I've been seeing a lot of, I'm nauseous, I can't believe this, I don't know how to process this. But this journalist, Aaron Rupar, said if Trump wins, there will be efforts to blame Russian interference or the Harris campaign or Biden, et cetera. That's all fair. But we need to be clear-eyed that a huge swath of America likes what Trump is selling. Transphobia, mass deportation, that's what he ran on. And here we are. So I guess, he did get part of that right. And that, yes, a huge portion of the country is buying what Donald Trump is selling, because we've seen what's happened the last 4 years every time we go to the grocery store, every time we check our bank account. So it's interesting, though, seeing their responses. I think a lot of them have already thrown in the towel, and that's why they're all leaving Harris campaign headquarters.
Thank you very much, Hillary. I appreciate it. Stu, what we were just talking about, go ahead. You have your finger up.
Do we have a state to call here? Do we have a Senate race? Can we go do that now? Yeah. Okay. So this is an important one for a couple different reasons. First of all, it's the tactic. They tried to bring an independent into this race, make it seem like there was no Democrat. He's not a Democrat. We can now call Nebraska for Deb Fischer.
Yes.
Now, Fischer might not be our favorite Republican in the world, but the key thing about this one is it does put the Republicans in control of the Senate, 51 seats. So this is the one that puts them over the top. There is still, a Montana race that looks pretty darn good right now. There are still some good possibilities between Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, maybe Nevada, maybe Arizona. So there's still maybe more to come. But the big key is the Republicans will take control of the Senate, at least with 51 votes. They needed this one. This was one that the Democrats put a fortune into to try to fool people in Nebraska of thinking this independent was really independent when in actuality he was a Democrat.
This is the second time they've tried this. They tried this in Utah against Mike Lee, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And the second time they've done it, people are just not as stupid as they think they are. I mean, the Democratic Party is so insulting to people's intelligence that they think they could. If I'm not mistaken, it's been a couple of weeks since we talked about this guy, in depth.
Yeah.
But the guy's a socialist.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
a labor guy, tried to play it off, but he was tough on the border. He did that typical playbook.
Yeah.
Tried to make himself look like he was really independent. When in reality, it was the 1630 Foundation, Glenn. I know you've done shows on that.
Oh, yeah.
This is, George Soros money poured into Nebraska to try to fool people in Nebraska to let one slide. And while, look, I did a list at the beginning of the year of the Republicans I thought we should primary, and Deb Fischer was on it. So I'm not a huge fan of Deb Fischer by any stretch of the imagination, but once she gets through the Republican side, you got to get that extra vote. Getting control of the Senate is a big deal. We know how big it is with judges. If Donald Trump does pull this thing off, which he's in very good position to do, think about the Supreme Court. This is a big moment in our country's history. Even though Deb Fischer, again, not my favorite Republican in the world, this is a big moment.
Who is the closest to retirement on the Supreme Court? You have Clarence Thomas.
He's up there.
Alito.
He's up there. Who else, Stu?
Alito.
Yeah.
I
mean, this president may have the opportunity to nominate 2 Supreme Court justices. And they're going to be important because those 2 you can pretty much count on, at least Thomas.
Oh, my God. And Alito, too. I mean, both Thomas and Alito are really, really good. They're, arguably better than any of the Supreme Court justices that have come after them. While we've got some good results out of the Supreme Court is a lot better than it was at previous times. There's a gap there. And, losing Thomas and Alito, if you don't pick A pluses, that's going to be a real problem for the conservative movement. Hopefully we can nail those 2. But that, look, Clarence Thomas to me is essentially the most important person in America.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm overstating that. So I really hope he sticks around for as long as possible. But a Republican president with a Republican Senate, you can probably get somebody pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that's a miracle in and of itself. Just got word that RFK and Tulsi and others are beginning to arrive at Trump headquarters in Florida, which means they will be taking the stage. There's RFK Jr. I think he is going to declare victory tonight, which would be very, very smart, I think, on his part. It moves the momentum and just makes it harder to kind of go back. Would you agree with that?
I mean, what does he have to lose at this point? I mean, this is something where we can't see how we can't falsify, right? We can't come up with what the plan would be to say all of a sudden there's an obstacle to it and a route to his path to victory. He's 95% chance even by the New York Times accounting right now. So why not come out and say, look, this is ridiculous. They're delaying this, but, you know, here I am.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing to me that how fragile we are as a nation. It reminds me a little bit of September 11th. You remember, by the time the plane had crashed in Pennsylvania, and then the Pentagon, or I don't remember which one was first, we all looked at each other and went, my gosh, this is so fragile. This could be over tonight. You know, we didn't know what was coming. And we tend to forget how fragile this whole thing is. All they need is just a little window, you know, and they just need a narrative. And if this is the narrative where it looks like, well, everybody went to bed, you can easily. We're going to be with you tonight until something happens, until they either call these things or they call it a night, and we will be covering it with anything that's coming from Trump headquarters. Kamala's already called it a night. She's not going to be speaking. Everybody went home. I mean, it is it's pathetic.
It is wild.
It is really. I mean, have we taken a minute just to recognize the history we're living tonight? I mean, we are truly living something that is going to be read about for a very, very long time. Come on in, Steve. We're sitting here witnessing, I think, a miracle. Is something that most Americans have never seen before. Most Americans have not lived through a candidate being persecuted like Donald Trump has been, and then shot and called Hitler for 6 years, and then wins an election. I mean, and a total shift of the ground.
He was exiled too, right? I mean, you were not allowed to hear him talk. That we were going to get rid of him on social media. It will be as if he didn't exist, and that that was a big part of the last few years for people. Trump had to work his way back into the news cycle because he used to dominate it through Twitter alone, and that's what we've seen come back in the last few months. He dominates the news cycle, the McDonald's, the garbage truck. He all of a sudden was back in the saddle again, and now we see this potential win. But I really hate the fact that they're robbing people right now, right? They're trying to rob him of a victory speech. They're trying to rob us of declaring victory. And, you know, I have all kinds of things I would love to say, right, to various people, but we can't, you know, they're doing this on purpose.
Yeah, they did this to Joe Biden. Remember when he was supposed to speak? It was his big night. They waited until what, 12:30?
One of the positive trends moving forward, though, you know, we mentioned North Carolina by 77 points. Wisconsin, 70% voted that only citizens could vote. Looks like a statewide referendum in Nevada that says you have to have photo ID to vote. Looks like that's going to pass statewide. So the structural responses and checks and balances. So, you know, call people like me, and, you know, and I got myself defunded, the channel defunded. I've been censored so many times since that election night 4 years ago. Well, I'll say this, when they put it to the people are saying we are going to put in place the kinds of policies that'll make it so nothing that questionable will ever happen again. And I go to the interview that Rogan had with John Fetterman a couple days ago.
Oh, my gosh, was that?
Where he got Fetterman to admit what would be the possible reason to have people without photo ID vote unless you were trying to let illegal aliens vote.
Right.
And Fetterman admitted there would really be no other reason to do it other than that.
That was Joe Rogan. That broadcast with both Trump and then Fetterman, I mean, was quite amazing. Imagine what it would have been like if she would have been on. You know, she would not have been able. I mean, Fetterman, even in his condition, is better than she would have been. Stu.
Update, pretty interesting, coming from Pennsylvania. As we've been talking about for a while, it looks like Trump's looking very good there. The New York Times has been calling this, lean Democrat for most of the night, even though it looked pretty good for Donald Trump. They have just converted it to very likely Trump.
Bring him in here.
Very likely Trump. If that I have not seen them all night and in most election cycles ever reverse a very likely.
What state was that you said?
That was Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Pennsylvania, that's the ballgame, right? That's it. If he gets Pennsylvania, he'd be up, according to the New York Times count, let's see, what is it, 19? So he'd be at 266 technically, but he'd still have Arizona where he seems to be leading. He just need to pick up